Welcome to Season 4 of SkillCast, the podcast by the London Organisation of Skills Development. My name is Nurbanu and I'm your host. I couldn't be more excited to embark on this new season with you. In Season 4, we're pushing boundaries and exploring the forefront of skills development. We'll discuss emerging trends, innovative practices, and the evolving landscape of professional growth. Our lineup features thought leaders, industry pioneers, and change makers who are redefining what's possible. Whether you're aiming to future-proof your career, ignite your passion, or simply enjoy insightful conversations, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. So welcome to SkillCast.
Thank you.
So how would you introduce yourself to someone?
So I'm basically a technocrat-turned-entrepreneur and someone who fell in love with computers like in very young age. Look, I have a chance to get accustomed with computer when I was in my KG section. My dad used to be an IT manager for a dairy food company. So I started off back then, and then I started coding in my 6th grade. Then it's all just passion. I've been following this, and now like I'm looking at AI and the development that's happening in Agentic AI and all those stuff.
Oh, interesting. So
And on the side, I run a company.
on the side, you run a company.
Yeah, side of my passion.
Outside of your company. So your passion and your work is the same, or is it separate?
So it's I follow my passion. So company is, you can say, is a step behind. So I find something new and I learn it, and I then make it business and then pass it on to the company. So the company follows my step.
Oh, that sounds so cool. So you're basically like a creator of businesses and stuff.
You could maybe say someone who is very curious and learning new developments that's happening in the technology field. So early 2022, Gen AI was becoming a thing among developers, not among the common people, until 2023 March when ChatGPT was launched, right? So I have been like lost in this Gen AI thing and experimenting with this. I also went deep into stable diffusion, which is generative art. And we did some tools around local language and all those things. But all this are on the side. Like we made some media headlines for accessibility for language and all in local media in Kerala. It's not until another 1 year or 1.5 years before it became something of work. Like we started doing something around it, and we started. Until then, it's just me and the interns experimenting with stuff.
Do you ever find, like, in terms of risk, because obviously it's a massive risk you're taking, and there's so many people around the world that have similar ideas to you, similar concepts to you, and you don't know what other people are doing. How do you get there quick enough, or is it okay to get that at the same pace as someone else in the same field?
So when you are in this for passion, or when you love doing this, you don't really care. You're not looking at other people. You don't know if you're first or second or third. But usually people with passion are the first. So like I think I was the first in most of the development communities in Kerala or in maker spaces to speak on this topic to students and mentor some people to start developing on this, talk to media houses and businesses and introduce to them all these things. So I actually had a conversation with a leading media organization in Kerala 4 months before ChatGPT. And I told them like this is going to be big and you should start investing in this. And it did not like they did not get it for obvious reasons. Like so we tech people kind of see it very easily, and we fail to communicate it in a layman language. And you know what happens, right? And they were like, okay, and it just passed, and now it's big, right? So if I would have communicated better, they would have done something, or I don't know, like how it goes, or maybe this is how it should be.
I find, personally speaking from a layman's perspective, I find people that are really into tech have a very technical way of explaining things, and it's not very understandable to like the human centric people who are kind of just living on a day-to-day life. I feel like people who are into tech, but then people who are into tech are also very good at presenting their ideas, their concepts. They tend to be the leaders in that space, I'm finding. So a lot of the people that are generating good AI are actually very good speakers as well. So there was actually one of the first people that actually went in that created ChatGPT, for example, a lot of the investors that went in, like Vinod Khosla, for example, he's a very good speaker. And because of the fact that he's able to speak very well and articulate things, that open AI really just like grew and it just expanded really. And I really believe that it is the speakers, whether it's the investor into that tech or the person developing, if they're able to get it, then it really works. Correct. And I think that works with the investors side as well. People that who are actually techie, but then also have other interests as well.
So I think like where I would be different from that would be, usually most of the business would go and talk to investors and tech leaders and people who would be invested in that financially, right? So I'm someone who go to the grassroots. So I went and spoke to a local media guy, like these are not the people who would even pay you for it. Or I go and speak to the local communities, the colleges, um, or civil society leaders and all those people, and I tell them, okay, this can be used to uplift some of the people. Like if you can introduce some of the backward people, or people who are marginalized early on to this tech, maybe they can beat the competition earlier, right? And kind of can have an effect on the. So these are people who cannot actually invest in you. Usually they look out for support and all those things, right? So maybe that's a reason, maybe they're not able to understand this. But if, as you said, if it's investors and all, they are always looking for the cutting edge because they want to be the first to invest, and they even would invest in half knowledge. Like if they think, okay, there is a chance for it to become something, they will go all in because they cannot miss on one opportunity. Like if they miss something, it will be a huge miss. So they keep investing in all possible things that's coming up. So Web3 did not make it big, but almost all investors have invested heavily on that. Then AI came. They did not think twice when AI came, right? Gen AI came and they started investing because they know if they miss three, if they get the fourth one, it will cover all the cost, right? So to answer you, probably the reason I feel differently would be I speak to a different category of people who are not someone who could actually invest in, or are not someone who is bothered about future. Like they're all in the present itself.
So how would you speak to people who like there's villages and towns where there are places like hotels, for example, and then there is the mainstream cosmopolitan cities. In the cosmopolitan cities, it's very easy to kind of incorporate AI into their day-to-day services. For example, getting some robot waiters and things because it expedites, it makes things quicker, and potentially it's going to save money in the long run. Whereas there's some villages where there'll be some hotels where they'll be like, no, we just want humans. We don't believe in this AI and tech and stuff. How sustainable are those businesses in the villages? Because they're like, AI is not going to disturb us. It's not doing anything for us if they are very set in their ways.
So this would differ from a different industry to industry. There are certain industries that cannot be disrupted easily. Like it also has to do with the mindset of the customers, right? So imagine, think of like Decathlon, for example, the sports retail brand. So if you look at their model, like if you go to Bangalore Brigade Road, they have no cashiers. You can only do self checkout without cashiers. But if you come to Calicut, which is like a tier 2 city, you have both. You have self checkout and you have cashiers. So you have both kind of people. Then if you go a little more like south and look at some of the Decathlon don't have self checkout, right? So the whole idea is like you can only move tech as far as the customers are willing to move, right? For example, in Calicut, I pushed a restaurant to actually do order from table and then pay from table and remove the waiters so they can scale to more branches. But they said no, they cannot do that because the customers are expecting someone to come, welcome them, ask them to sit, and ask them if they want something, right? So this will change as the community grows and people are more accustomed to brands. You have all the fast food chains, and you get used to the thing, and then you start seeing this as the standard, right? Okay, the big brands are doing this, so maybe this is a big brand, right? So to answer you, certain industries are not affected because the customers have not yet reached them. But there are certain industries, if you look at groceries, for example, right? Geo is coming up with something called GeoMart. And they have actually even in the villages, they have branches. Now they're going to use technology, AI, inventory management, and all to have very efficient inventory like where they will not keep a lot of stock, and they will be able to replenish it whenever they need it. So this kind of competition will affect the local players, because they might be holding a lot of inventory. They might not know what they are not selling, so they don't know when to put a discount and sell it off. So suddenly they will not be competitive. So that's how technology will actually affect them. Like, so it's not like the robots or cutting edge technologies. It's maybe just a billing software that is intelligent, or inventory management system, or allowing customer to place order on WhatsApp. So these kind of technologies, if they don't adopt, those kind of industry will be affected no matter which tier you are in terms of village or city. And we see that happening a lot.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a little thing that makes such a profound difference into like how the business grows and the expansion of the businesses. But I feel in the hospitality and the retail side of things, I think the one thing that's stopping people is a lot of people are having new dietary restrictions and this and that, and having to order something on a table, it's quite restricted because it doesn't let you add in your comments. So I feel like there is still that gap. So I don't feel restaurants, like you're saying, people need that human connection, but they kind of need that human connection because the human understands slightly differently. I feel like there's still a long way to go.
You can also turn that table, no? Like your just think of it like a KFC or a chain, you keep going, or McDonald's, you keep going, and they have a profile on you. So no matter which brand you go, they will know what allergies you have, or if you have lactose intolerance, and they could actually warn you when something comes up, right? Which a local restaurant cannot remember you, and if let's say it's in a very busy place, like it's almost impossible for them to remember you or your preferences. So that's where tech could make a huge difference, right? The only thing that tech might take away is the hospitality that you get from a human to human connection, right? When so I keep telling this, like this every business try to come up with something like loyalty programs, right? They give you reward stars, and Starbucks has this card and stuff, right? It shows you which status you are right now, so you keep going there. So you can beat that with a warm and nice welcoming person, right? So there is in Cochin there is a French bakery. They only had like old women to serve, and these people are like our moms. Usually when you come there, they are bothered about you. If you're not eating, they'll ask you to eat. And once you get that warm feeling, right, then no discount, or no matter what kind of apps or technology you have, right, because you feel like going home. And they will be like, oh, your tea is hot, why didn't you drink, let me heat it up and bring it back, kind of. And that's not coming from training. So they have carefully had those kind of people, like from those part of life, who have experienced that, and who can actually genuinely give that experience. So if you go to some of the hospitality trained people, right, you can see they're making it up. You know the smile is fake, the words are fake, it's in today's world, the ChatGPT generated text, right? They'll be like, oh, welcome to our hotel, hope you had a nice day, are you enjoying the day? These are all made up, templated, right? But when you have these old people, for example, you cannot beat that, right? So unless you have a human element, everything else will be replaced.
Yeah, and also I find sometimes in hotels and things, when the manager writes you a handwritten note, it makes such big difference than just getting a typed letter to say welcome to the hotel, like you said. Because when you know it's handwritten, I feel like they've actually taken the time to actually sit down, write your name, learn about you, and tell you to enjoy your experience. It makes that big difference. I feel like that artificial intelligence is going so forward, but that human connection, you can never be human intelligence. And that always
until you start that line start diminishing. So I don't know, like I know people who converse a lot with ChatGPT, for example, and now they are very friendly and it feels so natural for them. And so these are our generation, right? Now think of the young generation that's growing up, and who are having more conversation with Alexa than human beings, who are speaking. So in my home, they control the TV, change the episodes, ask for songs, and ask set alarms and all using Alexa. So, and it's not even the new gen Alexa, which is like generative AI. These are the ones which are dumb, which can only answer in one sentence and all those things. And they're very, very comfortable with that. Like we don't do that a lot, but they are very comfortable. Now, I had a shocking moment when I had shown one night, when this ChatGPT advance came. I made my young daughter, like 4 years old, to interact with this and ask to tell story and enjoy this. And she called me when I was in Dubai, and she said, "Can you give the phone to ChatGPT, Andy?" Right. So she is actually relating to that as a person, like even though it doesn't exist, even though it's an app in my phone, because she don't know what an app is, what a tech is, what mobile apps are, but she has interacted and experienced a conversation with someone and felt good about it, right? So once that generation is here, right, and who really don't value or have not got chance to value the human connections and stuff. Let's say they learned online and they traveled in driverless cars, right, and they're interacting more with AI and all those things. For them, maybe this won't be a problem, right? That will be the shift which will eventually affect the businesses and any industry that will be replaced by AI.
And it just sounds like a really scary space to be. Like, you're not really interacting with the real people, but you're interacting with something not real that feels very real.
That's a danger in that,
Yeah.
right? Once you allow your decisions, your critical thinking, your creativity, your judgments to be taken by something that is not human, right? Which cannot have intent, which cannot have proper judgment other than algorithms. And when it become normalized, right? There's a word called this banality of evil. It was termed during this Holocaust trial by someone, a philosopher by the name Helen, I think. So the banality of evil is like, imagine you were working for Hitler in some administrative role, in some government roles. So none of them actually felt they were part of the crime because they were just doing their job. They were in the government jobs. And no one actually resigned. Very less people resigned, and that was a mass psychology. Like there was a research on that. How did millions of people continue to work for a country, a government that was killing a lot of people? So the term banality of evil was like, I'm just doing my job. I'm not part of it. I'm just hired here to be a receptionist, a ticket collector, or a taxi driver, right? So then this is going to be exponentially bigger banality of evil when algorithm decides who should have capital punishment. If there's a shortage of doctor, who get to leave, who get to go for that surgery, right? Because AI would predict who have more survival chance, right? AI would predict who should be killed, who is a potential terrorist in future, and if algorithm also controls the drones and it goes and bombs a place, right? Or let's say the shortage of let's say for education there's a shortage, or if you have some social security which has shortage, and if algorithms start taking these calls, and then if something goes wrong, people would say, I trusted the algorithm, like the software told me to do so, right? And we are not far away from that, because people are doing that now. We have I actually woke up reading a tragic news from India, where a girl died dieting from taking instruction from a YouTube video.
Gosh.
Right? So this is not AI. It's a YouTube video which we can control right now. So misinformations and bad advices are controllable right now because it's out there. It's in social media. You can watch, you can study. But imagine once it's all personalized for each person, and I won't know what you are actually being told by the AI, right? Even the creator might not know at scale what is happening at your end, right? So these are all generated particularly against your prompt, and we really don't know what is going to come out of it. It's not an FAQ or a textbook reading a paragraph out of a chapter, right? It's generating something new each time you ask.
But isn't it machine learning though? It's generating through how the human mind is thinking, because these AI things, it's humans that are creating and generating. So the prompts that it's given is based on those. So do not think it's a human issue altogether.
You can say human issue exponentially magnified. So I don't know if you know, during the beginning of GPT-2, the reason it did not got released to public was like it had all the biases. It was sexist. It was xenophobic. It was racist. So whatever. So there was this thing someone tried, like. So the generative AI, first version of generative AI was used for generating content, right? So someone wrote like Christian, a Jew, and a Muslim walked into a bar. and asked the AI to complete it. And the AI said, and the Muslim man blew the bar and killed everyone, and it just generated that. So it's because the training data is mostly based on the mainstream media and what they project, what they are giving a more prominence for, and if you know the history, like during the USSR US war, USSR was the enemy, right? And if you, I had actually gone through Time magazines of that time, and I could see everything that's being told about Iraq, and only just change the country name, it's the same headlines. And then the enemy changes. Now it's China, right? Now it's China's master AI, China's weapons, like China's human rights issues. So it's always like, probably if you're reading the Chinese media, you would see the opposite. Now imagine if the AI being trained in China is on their media account, and the one, so that these biases will
The biases are
magnified.
there. That's interesting to know. So actually, don't you feel that maybe humans need to have training to become better humans? So when we are generating the AI, when we are creating the prompts, they are at probably more of a non-judgmental stance. Or is there a way of incorporating different biases and creating a neutral balance? Is that something
that's
AI
what.
can do?
So see, this is a question of liberty, freedom, censorship. So you see, now every government is trying to push. So value is not something that is very monolithic, right? Or you don't have a singular value across the world. So East have a different value and the West have a different value. So there was an interview with this Qatar's PM last week by Tucker Carlson, and he asked him like the issue of old age homes. So for FIFA World Cup to be granted, and for the chances to improve, they suggested they create some old age homes. So that's a problem Qatar don't have. They are all joint families. So they don't have destitute old people who are on the street. They don't have it. But they ended up creating some of the old age homes just to get that score, and which have no people. Right? So this happened. Like now, if you look from West, if you look at the statistics and you see, oh, Qatar has no old age homes, it might look really scary for them. Right? And the other way around, from Qatar people to see that there's a lot of old age homes with people is scary for the Qatar people, right? These are cultural differences. Now, you cannot train an AI to, have a value like this. So now what AI does is like it's a complex topic. Like I don't want to comment on it. These are very complex and nuanced issue. So that again create a problem. Now AI is no more giving you information you want and you're censoring it, you're controlling it, and there will never be a single standard everyone agree on, right? So that's the reason each time Llama or something comes up, there's always an uncensored version. Someone would actually break all the controls that have been put in there and release it again. The same thing happened with generative AI. So people control what is ethical, to what extent can AI be expressive in terms of art, to what extent can it be explicit. So these kind of controls are not easy, and I think it will evolve. And I don't think we'll have a single standard. We'll see Western dominated. Once we already see that, like if you look at ChatGPT and you ask about conflicts which they are invested in, Middle East conflict and stuff, you will see ChatGPT would be very controlled. And same thing happens with DeepSeek and all this Chinese model. If you ask about the Chinese conflicts, and if you ask about their the massacres that have happened in the beginning of their establishment and all, it would be like I don't talk about it. Like I don't want to speak about it. These are very complex topics. So you already see that. Now it's only going to be get worse as it goes forward.
Yeah. So now tell me more about this agentic AI. Is agentic AI some sort of a better solution, and like in what ways is agentic going to help?
On one side, it's very exciting because the possibilities and also the results that we are seeing are huge, right? We have already seen a lot of result in healthcare, for example. Like if you know drug research, for example, it requires experts to work on different modeling and then see how it acts with the proteins in our body and how it's going to give result, and it takes years and years. And a lot of drugs that's in market are said to have been had around $1 billion or more worth of investment just for one drug to be developed. So that kind of reflects in the medical bills and how they try to patent it and get the money out of it, right? So now what is happening is like Gen AI could actually uh, be trained on this subject, right? And then instead of one scientist who usually takes around, let's say, like they do their graduation, undergrad, then graduation, and then their PhDs and all these things, and once they come back, By that time, they might have spent like maybe 6 years or 7 years or 8 years of research, and then they have to come and start the research. And a Gen AI could just be cloned, right? Like once you have trained 1 million and 2 million or 100 million is nothing. It's just like copying and cloning and cloning and cloning, right? Which means you can exponentially speed up the research of drugs, which we are already seeing. There are good talks online of different people who have done that and who are getting results. And another one is like you can have agentic AIs which are trained for different purpose. Like you can have one which is trained to do, let's say, checks and balances on this, and another one which would look at the data, and another one which would look at the scientific evidences. And I'm just giving some examples, random examples here. That's one thing. And second thing has to do with the bandwidth limit, which I mentioned yesterday. Human beings' problem is like a brain are probably better than any of the GPUs or computers we have today. But we have a problem. That is a bandwidth problem, which a lot of companies are trying to solve now. Because no matter how powerful your brain is, you can only input data through your ears and your eyes, right? So you have to either see and read it or listen to it. And now that you can just put a number to it now, like how much you can learn, right? Even if you don't sleep, how much would that be? Like maybe a word or 4 words per second, right? Something like that. So the problem with that is like irrespective if like let's say I'm an AI engineer who knows to do things with AI, and you are a researcher in biology, right? Now, for us to understand each other's problem and try to solve something, we have to speak, right? And we might speak for weeks and months and months and months before we would come at something and discover and have an aha moment of something that can be done. But AI is like it doesn't have a bandwidth problem. So you could feed it with millions of data. As long as you have enough GPUs, you can just train everything. So if you look at GPT, for example, it has been trained on all possible data online, videos and audios and images and almost anything they can grab their hands on, plus synthetic data which they generated. So it's also trained on the data it generated and all the other people are generating. Now imagine how much time, or can a human being ever learn half of it or 1/3 of it? It's not possible, right? So on that side, agentic AI is doing great stuff. That's the reason it's able to answer. Maybe it can solve your biological question with philosophy. It can use mathematics in somewhere else. You can mix things up and actually do things, right? So that way, it's going to touch every technology that we are seeing. Yeah, you want to?
The thing I'm kind of concerned about, so you mentioned bandwidth, but what I'm finding with this agentic AI, with the cloning and things, there is a really big lag. So you find when you're asking these clones questions and things, you see all of these nodding heads and all of these fillers they're filling in. And I feel like, is that because the bandwidth is not enough? Are we not generating enough power, enough energy? Because I feel like the lag is there.
You mean in ChatGPT?
Just generally in in agentic AI, when we're generating these clones, where you're finding when you're like having these chatting, like these video chatting models and things, you'll find there's this really big lag, like they're having to nod their heads and all of these head tilts because they're fillers, right? Yeah. So is it because the I'm finding when we say bandwidth, is that what we're talking about, or no? Or do you
so I was talking about the amount of content you can take in and give out, right?
Right.
So if you have tried, like you could actually for example, Gemini has a 2 million token context. That's approximately 2 million words. You could actually give Gemini 2 million words at a time, and it can start processing it in the next second, right? So it can actually get all the 2 million words in its head, if you can imagine it that way, and start crunching it and thinking about it. Right? If you can tell it to tell me, summarize this for me in one paragraph, and it will give you, right? So that's a bandwidth I'm talking about. The bandwidth you mentioned has to do with two things.
I think it's a bit of power and the
energy. Power is one thing, but in the video models and all, we have another latency issue. Like so to give you, I'll try to make this as technical as possible. When you speak something, right, your audio has to be captured by your system, and it has to be sent over the internet to their server, right? So it has to travel, and then that audio reaches there and it has to be translated or transcribed to text, right? And then that text has to be processed by an LLM. You have multimodals which can directly process audio now, but either way, like this, and then it generates back. Now, what it generated has to travel back right?
Time.
And then it has to be do lip syncing with whatever avatar you have. So that's a lag that you're seeing mostly. And secondly, if you're on if there's a cost factor, so sometimes you do engineer some of the lag, so you're able to scale it. So like imagine you want to serve 1,000 customers with the same GPU, so you might try to restrict the kind of compute one person can get, right? So you do introduce some level of constraint on the resources used, so that you don't end up not being able to serve a lot of people.
Okay, so talk to me. So I've tried Gemini and I've also tried GPT, but I'm finding my responses on ChatGPT much more. I don't know. The responses are much nicer than I'm getting on Gemini, even though I feel like Gemini is a bit more ahead in terms of what it can the processing level. But the responses I'm getting, is it like kind of like having an Android and an iPhone or an iOS? Is that the situation here? What's going on? Why am I more comfortable with this model compared to another one?
So there are so many layers to unpack here. So one thing is like, are you using paid version in both or
paid version?
Yeah. So you might have seen a lot of models now. It's becoming a problem now. Like if you look at in ChatGPT Pro, for example, this $200 version, right? It also have a pro model and a deep research model. So different models are designed for different purpose. Like so they have given some one-liners on that. Like you have some models which are for quick tasks, and some which are for complex reasoning, some which are for coding, and some are reasoning models. And for example, the pro model actually go away and come back after like few minutes. Like it doesn't even generate anything. It will show it's working on it, and it takes like 5 minutes or 8 minutes depending on the kind of problem you have given it, and then it comes back with an answer. And usually not with a big paragraph. Usually it comes with a very concise, very small answer to you, but it'll be like well thought and all those things. So now the same thing is true for Gemini. So Gemini also have a version 1.5. You have a 2.0. And then you also have a reasoning model. So DeepSeek actually popularized the reasoning model. No, you see it thinking, and coming up. So now ChatGPT has reasoning models and Gemini has reasoning models. So a lot of thing what happens in Google and ChatGPT, the change of language would be mostly from the training data. Google is more searchy kind of data. But if you look at the new models, the 2.0 models, and then go for reasoning, you will see similar kind of output from both. It has got to a point where you cannot differentiate much. Like all are so sophisticated, everything is so perfect, the language is so good. Like it's always like at that point, right? You always have to take some data out of it to make it look human, because everything is like a PhD scholar writing an email, right?
Interesting. It's interesting what the future holds. Well, thank you so much for our conversation. I think it was definitely really enlightening for our audience.